I was just starting to prepare this PhoneGap application. I'm going to go ahead and take out all the stuff that we don't need. So we'll get rid of everything here except for the link to Cordova. And of course this. You know, you can make your own template too. I don't know why I haven't done so. That doesn't have all of this content in it. There's no reason you necessarily have to use the template that's provided by PhoneGap. So what we're going to do in this particular example is we're going to go ahead and send data to the server. Now, we've stored data on the device, but oftentimes large amounts of data or data that has to be coalesced with other data should be stored on some type of web server. So we have a web server ready for that purpose. Now, your web server, it doesn't really matter what language the web server speaks. You could do this with a .NET server, a CGI bin that's running Python. I happen to be using PHP for our server. So let's go ahead and create here what will be our server-side file. And I'll just save this. I don't necessarily want to save it in the PhoneGap project, but somewhere nearby. So let's go ahead and save it here on the desktop, and I'll just call this store.php. So the store.php file, put right there, is going to take the data that's sent by our device, and it's going to store it or do something with it. All right, so we've got our store.php file, and we're ready to build that. And we've got our index. So let's go ahead and send 3 pieces of information to the server that we might want to store. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to do a little form. And let's ask the user to enter the names of 3 different bands. So that'll be band 1. And input type equals text. And obviously the ID here will be band 1. Make this very easy. And we can even use copy and paste here to build the rest of the form. And remember, I'm not using form tags here because this is not being processed in the traditional way. This will be processed through JavaScript. And there we'll build a query to send to the server. All right, so band 1, band 2, band 3. And let's go ahead and create a button. And we'll ID this button as store. Actually, let's do btn store. And we'll just put store on server. So when that button is clicked, the action is literally going to take place. All right, so let's do our script tags here and our window onload event associated with our anonymous function. All right, now on the document, we're going to do our event listener. And we're listening for the device ready event. And when the device ready runs, we'll call init. And we'll also go ahead and create the last argument there as false. And now we're ready for our init function. And in here, we're going to want to attach a listener to the button and create our HTTP request object. So let's go ahead and get the button. Get element by ID. And it's called btn store. We're going to add the event listener. And the event we're going to be listening for is click. We'll call send data. And we'll set that last one to false. We'll create a global XML HTTP request object. So there's our reference declaration. And now we'll instantiate it. Equals new XML HTTP request. We can, if we want to, set up our open but not yet our send. I prefer to do both at the same time, but we do need to have our ready state change event listener. And let's go ahead and call this server response. That'll be the name of the function. Server response. Looks like I have a typo right there for function. Let's fix that. OK. So now we need one more function, and that's going to be the send data function. That's associated with the button. All right, so we have the outline now. So now our send data function, first thing we're going to do is let's configure the XML HTTP object. So the method we're going to use get, and the URL is going to be, let me grab that because it's kind of long. Grab our temporary URL here. All right. And we'll call this just like we did our PHP store.php. And we'll set asynchronous to true. At this point, we can send. Now, we actually have to get the data out of these inputs. So let's go ahead and actually do this a little bit differently. I'm going to take this whole thing, and I'm going to put it in a variable called URL. And we'll declare URL right here. Because what we've got to do is create the query string with URL that has the information that we want. So the first one's going to be band1 equals. And then we're going to add to this URL plus equals document get element by ID band1 dot value. We've done this kind of thing before in the course. We're simply creating a query string band2 equals, and we'll concatenate to that another call to get element by ID, but this time we'll get the value of the band2 input. Let's make sure we make that change right here. And got to do this one more time because there's 3 bands. Just like that. All right. So now we've got the 3 values that'll be sent to the server. Now the server should have some type of response. So if XML HTTP status, or actually let's do the other one first. Ready state is 200, and XML HTTP status is, I just mixed the 2 of those up. This one should be 4. You probably caught that as I was doing it. And status equals 200. That's what we're looking for. Now, if that's the case, what we're going to do is we're just going to tell the user that the data has been stored. So do we have some place to do that? Looks like we need a little div ID equals result. And that data has been stored message will come back from the server. So let's go ahead and set the inner HTML of that result div to the XML HTTP dot response text. Okay, so that looks like we've got just about everything we need. So we've got getting the data from the form on the device, and then we're actually going to go ahead and take that data, create a query string going to the right address, send it, and wait for a response. So now on this side, we're going to get 3 values, band1, band2, and band3. So I'm going to set those to local PHP variables this time. So here we've got our super global arrays, and this is going to take it out of the query string. Band2. And finally, band3. So now that we've got this information, depending on what language or platform you're using, we could come in here and we're going to do all of, connect to the database, to store the info in a log, send an email, whatever we're going to do. So in here, we're processing the data essentially that's been sent. Now, that's going to vary from language to language and platform to platform, and frankly, is a little beyond the scope of this course. So I'm just going to leave that like that. If you need a good PHP course, we certainly offer one in which you can learn how to do this and store it to a SQL database. But again, beyond the scope of this course. So what we're going to do here is we'll just echo stored. And don't forget, in PHP, the concatenation character is a dot, band1. Band2. So this way we'll know we received the data. Band3. All right. All right, so there's our server side. So now we can store this information on the server, or do whatever we're going to do with it. Typically, we're going to put it in some kind of database. So now store.php needs to physically go up on our server. Done. And you're going to want to test it using a browser. So using a browser, I'm going to want to write the query string and make sure I get the expected response. So let's load up Firefox here. And remember, we called this store.php. So I'm just going to grab the URL from here. Perfect. Bring Firefox back up. All right, so band1 will make journey ampersand band2 equals, make sure you don't make a typo here, sticks ampersand band3 equals heart. Send that data, stored, journey, sticks, and heart. So I know my server side is working. So the next step is we need to take this onto the device and make sure it works on the device itself. So let me go ahead and make sure everything is saved. And for this particular app, there we go, store server data, we're going to be going into Android. You can see we've got everything here ready to go. There's my assets, my www, and the index file we've been working on. All right, so we'll load up Eclipse, and we'll go ahead and bring in the necessary files. Okay, this isn't the first time we've gone through this process. So let's go ahead here in Eclipse, File, New Project. We're going to find our project from existing code on the desktop. Go back here to the desktop and store server data. Beautiful. Brings it in. And here is our project. We've got in here, of course, our assets. There's our www file. And this error needs to be corrected, or at least accounted for. So I'm going to go ahead here in Properties, and Android. Choose the latest API I have available. Actually, let's go back to 4.0. That'll work. And let's get one of our virtual devices going. Get all of these for version 4. Okay, we'll get that started. And once that's started, we'll go ahead and launch our application and see what kind of results we get. And this particular emulator is a little big for our screen capture, but we certainly can make it work. Oh, it also has a keyboard I don't like. So I don't know, we'll just put any words in here. Doesn't matter, that's supposed to be band names. Oops, went to the wrong one there. We're in there now. Let's do... let's get the cursor flashing in the right place. There. And I stored dmusic contact and a couple of blanks. Let's go ahead, let's try Gene. Sometimes I get this emulator that's only got the traditional keyboard, like you used to do it, years ago. But we can certainly see that we're getting the correct result. It's going to the server is storing it or whatever it was going to do, and it's sending the correct result back. So that's a little information about storing information from your